This is a story about Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer. Gary Leon Ridgway was born on February 18, 1949 in Salt Lake, Utah. He was the second of three sons in a deeply dysfunctional family. His father, a bus driver, often spoke negatively about sex workers, something that may have seeded Gary's hatred towards them. His mother was reportedly domineering, and Gary claimed she bothered him well into his teenage years, an experience that left him both ashamed and aroused. These early childhood dynamics played a significant role in shaping the mind of a future serial killer. Gary struggled academically and had a low IQ of around 82 and exhibited early childhood tendencies, once stabbing a 6-year-old boy when he was just only 16 years old. Despite these red flags, Gary lived a seemingly normal adult life. He served in the Navy, he married several times, and he even fathered a son. He worked as a truck painter at Kenwood Truck Company for over 30 years. To neighbors and co-workers, he was a quiet and hard-working man, blending perfectly into the suburban life. But behind this mask was a man who was obsessed with sex, control, and murder. In the summer of 1982, the body of 16-year-old Wendy Cofield was found floating in the river King County, Washington. Over the next few weeks, 4 bodies were discovered in or near the same river. Deborah Bonner, Marcia Chapman, Oprah Mills, and Cynthia Hinds. All were young women. Most were sex workers or runaways. All had been strangled, often with their own clothing. Panic gripped the Seattle area. A task force was forced. They dubbed the unknown killer the Green River Killer. But the killer didn't stop. Over the next few years, bodies continued to appear in ravines, wooded areas, vacant lots, and even in shallow graves. Some victims were posed, and some victims were naked. Several were left in the areas that the killer could return to, which he returned to, sometimes engaging in necrophilia. Police had a long list of suspects, but no hard evidence. One name kept appearing: Gary Ridgway. He had been arrested for soliciting prostitutes and even reported by a woman who narrowly escaped his grasp. He was interviewed several times in the 1980s and even passed a polygraph test. Meanwhile, Ridgway was learning from the investigation. He altered how and where he dumped his bodies. Sometimes he planted fake evidence or scattered remains in different locations to throw off the scent. At the same time, he was involved in church activities, volunteered, and even with his third wife, seemingly the perfect suburban man. Between 1982 and 1998, dozens of women would vanish, but the killer remained hidden in plain sight. By the late 1980s, DNA technology had improved dramatically. Investigators reopened all river case and retested all the preserved evidence. In 2001, they struck gold because semen samples were found on 3 victims that would be matching Gary Ridgway. On November 30th, 2001, Ridgway was arrested at the Kenwood truck plant where he had been working. At first, Ridgway denied everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. In 2003, to avoid the death penalty, he agreed to a plea deal, confessing to murdering 48 women in a chilling detail. He would admit to more, claiming the real number was closer to 70 or even 90 women. "I kill so many women, I have a hard time keeping them straight," Gary Ridgway would say during his confession. He would say all this in a flat and emotionless tone. There was no remorse, only a methodical recounting of how he lured, killed, and disposed of all his victims. On December 18, 2003, Gary Ridgway was sentenced to 49 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus 480 additional years. The courtroom was packed with families of victims, some who wept and ones who stayed in silence. One father forgave Ridgway, causing the killer to shed a single tear. He is currently imprisoned at Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. Over the years, more remains have been found, and Ridgway has continued to cooperate in relocating the bodies, though doing this never with emotion. Gary's confession tapes interrogation footages, and courtroom appearances have been widely circulated. The case has been covered in documentaries, in books, and even podcasts, forever marking him as one of history's most cold-blooded murderers. Gary Ridgway's killing spree changed law enforcement forever. His case highlighted the vulnerability of sex workers, the importance of forensic preservations, and the challenges of identifying victims without DNA. The Green River Task Force, which included FBI profiler John Douglas, who inspired the Netflix series Mindhunter, great movie by the way, became a model of how to hunt serial killers. But perhaps the darkest truth is that Ridgway lived among us, unnoticed, unsuspected, for decades and decades. He didn't look like a monster, and that's what made this man so dangerous. One thing I'm happy about is that the victims and the families received justice because the man was found and he is serving life and he is never ever to come out. But one thing's for sure, what he did can never ever ever make up for the victims who lost their lives and for the families who lost their kids and siblings.